All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome to Good Measure. My name is David, and I'll be your host today. Today, we have Arielle Warren, strategy analyst at Deloitte. She's here today to talk with us about her experiences at Deloitte and her journey from Hotchkiss to Deloitte. Arielle, thank you for being here with us today. Do you mind quickly introducing yourself to those in the audience who may not be familiar with you or your work at Deloitte?
Yes. Hi. Thank you so much for having me, David. I'm a Hotchkiss alum, so I graduated from Hotchkiss in 2017, and then I went on to Boston University where I graduated in 2021, and now I work at Deloitte as a strategy analyst where I work in customer and marketing, so I'm focused on where technology meets creativity. So thinking about that intersection and how it can impact and drive customer and employee experience.
So, as a strategy analyst at Deloitte, you must have paid a lot of attention to the rapid change in technologies just in this last year. How do you think blockchain and other distributed ledger technologies will shape businesses and companies in the future?
Yes. So I think first you have to understand what blockchain technology is. So blockchain technology allows record keeping to be distributed and public rather than centralized and private. So I think that for many businesses, this can be very applicable and utilized from the startup level all the way to major large organizations. When looking at sorry, I lost my train of thought. So when looking at how it can affect businesses and companies in the future, you also have to think about the user and customer, because I think that's where the major change will happen. This gives the user more power and over their information and helps to empower and give additional trust to them when interacting with large organizations. I think that really blockchain is empowering users, and that's where you'll see the most change within the next 5-10 years.
And so, speaking about trust, how does going from a non-public DLT to blockchain change the way a company can interact with public data and also public users?
Yeah, so blockchain gives users their personal sovereign information, data. So when people are interacting with blockchain, they are in control of their digital identity, which gives them personal trust in that how it's going to be perceived moving forward, but also gives them trust in that they understand what their digital footprint looks like. I think that for when you're switching from a non-public ledger to blockchain, it's going to be different in every situation, from media to financial, where we're going to see the most impact in the financial industry. But I think that overall, this is going to build so much trust for the user, and I think we're working towards that right now.
And speaking of building up trust, what exactly does a blockchain enable a company to do? Like, how does a blockchain promote innovation and an innovative ecosystem?
Yes. So blockchain promotes innovation because it gives the power back to the people. So right now we have to understand the technology and process standards that are rising up. So basically sorry, I'm like losing the train of thought. I got this. So it's going to be put a growing emphasis on usability, and it's going to increase the speed that first generation applications in blockchain haven't been able to do before. So it's going to be able to help you verify transactions, which is where the trust comes from, because not only is the transaction verified by the organization, but it's also verified by a third party, which is you as the consumer. So I think that verification process really allows for you to have that trust that what is going on is, safe, and allows for that speedy transaction and lowers either transaction fee or energy kind of consumption there.
So speaking about trust, so the blockchain enables for a sort of big corporation to interact with other public users because everything is recorded, right? So that means that you can trust the user, you can see the user's past, right? And so that's what enables the trust, if I'm hearing that right? Okay,
You
awesome.
are hearing that right. And I think that at this base of all of this is that blockchain technology is record keeping. So when you're looking at financial information and systems, it's very centralized. So if you think about a Chase Bank or a Bank of America, it's all held within those private institutions. Where with, for instance, Bitcoin, the record keeping of the transactions is decentralized and public. So you'll know where your money is or where the records are. So it allows for the transactions to be tracked and it to be public, programmatic, and transparent to everyone.
Okay. And so moving on from blockchain, could you tell us a little bit about your journey from Hotchkiss to Deloitte? How did you go from Hotchkiss to deciding on a career as a strategy analyst as Deloitte? And how are you able to find opportunities for like growth at companies such as Discovery and A&E?
Yes. So I'll start with my journey from Hotchkiss to Deloitte. So I think that Hotchkiss gave me a great opportunity to flex and my creativity and explore different career opportunities. So at Hotchkiss, I went abroad. I went to Florence, Italy. I also got to take classes in art and dance. I got to explore so many different opportunities. And then when I went to college, I was able to hone that. So I studied communications in college, where I was able to really learn about how individuals interact with technology. And something that was always a passion project for me was tech and how people interact with tech and how we can make it more usable and more interactive for the everyday consumer. So when I was looking for a job after college, I thought about not only what I was interested in, but also kind of my skills and looking around what kind of was this intersection between tech and creativity. And I was so happy to get that opportunity at Deloitte. So at Deloitte, it does really combine my interests. My job description literally says in it that I do tech and creativity. And now I'm doing some different work with these ledgers, but also with technology, some legacy systems. And that's really cool for me to put everything I've learned from Hotchkiss to BU into practice. I think your second question there was kind of how are you able to find growth opportunities at companies such as Discovery and A&E? So I interned at both of those companies throughout college, and I had such amazing experiences. My number one advice for anyone interning is to definitely for the opportunities and ask for what you want. So I started in communication roles, but I was able to do some legal work. I was able to do some marketing. I really was able to find and implement these different things that I was interested in. So for instance, at Discovery, I worked in Sydney, Australia. So I was focused on the Asian market over there. And I was able to be a part of the go live of the Discovery Plus app, which was an amazing experience for me. So I think that no matter what internship or previous work experience, for personal growth, you just have to ask for it and really find out what your interests are, because especially at large companies, you're able to find those interests because there are spaces for everyone, and so much of tech, marketing, communications intersects.
And so, as we all know, the pandemic was actually a very hard time for many businesses and employees. How did you sort of overcome it? And did you sort of brute force your way through, or did you find passions that kept your drive going?
So I think for me, I graduated during the pandemic. So I think for many people, it was such a different experience. But I like to say that I'm an extremely positive person. So I always would lean into how can I learn more and how can I continue to be curious. So next to me right now, I have all my books that I read from, I'm looking at Making a Great Strategy to Diversity Inc. to organization culture and leadership. So I think that the pandemic gave me time to really foster some of these interests that I didn't have prior knowledge about, and also to become and to continue to become, the most professional, person I can be. So I
Mhm.
think that for me, that was the opportunity the pandemic gave me.
And so was this sort of ability to sort of find your passions, was it this that allowed you to sort of find a balance between like searching for a job and your personal life during the period when basically everybody was online and you were just sort of trapped in your own house?
Yes. So I think that for me personally, I loved looking for a job, which is totally not the norm for anyone.
Mhm.
But I can say that I kind of became the unofficial job guru for a lot of my friends
Mhm.
because I love research. That is something that from a vacation to a job search to now
Mhm.
tech, I will always research. So I really appreciated the time to sit down and research and figure out what job really made the most sense for me.
Mhm.
And through that, I was able to find out best practices, how to proceed, questions to ask, and how to really make the best choice for
Mhm.
myself. So, I was looking at where my skills align and my interests align, but I think my
Mhm.
recommendation for anyone who's going through the job process is finding not only what you can do for the company, but what the company can do for you.
Mhm. And so speaking about going through the job process, to
Mhm.
any like sort of upcoming like graduate of college or any high schooler going into college, like what would you tell them about their sort of journey through college or through the job process? Like how do you like say like any words of encouragement for them, any sort of like how to find yourself kind of
Yes.
things?
So for any high schooler graduating right now, I would say try everything. And
Hmm.
if you have a passion, there's probably a club at your college that offers it or at least has a class.
Hmm.
For me, blockchain, I took a 6-hour course to start off, and that's kind of how I got into it.
Hmm.
So if you have a passion, pursue it. In college, they have not unlimited resources, but a lot of resources, and you normally can find your way. If you're graduating college, I would say that you did amazing. You really have done it all. And to keep moving forward, I think that I know for a lot of people it's a difficult job market right now, but you
Hmm.
will find the perfect fit, even if it's not necessarily your first job.
Hmm.
I got extremely lucky, but I think that there's so many opportunities, and there's so many opportunities for yourself to personally um, discover those. So whether that's enrolling in like a LinkedIn learning course or reading a book about a topic, there's so many podcasts. I actually was going to give my podcast recommendations because I have a bunch.
Hmm.
Um, so kind of finding your passion and just
Hmm.
continuing to foster that, even if it's 1 hour a week.
Hmm. Well, that's it for questions that I have. Do you have anything you'd like to say? Maybe even any questions for me? Anything you'd like to plug?
Yes. So first, I wanted to give some podcast recommendations because I think that a lot of times this new technology, you'll see it on TikTok, it will be flashy, and you're like, create an NFT, and you're like, what does that even mean? So some podcast recommendations that I wanted to give was Proof with Kevin Rose about NFTs,
Hmm.
also Modern Finance, which is about decentralizing financial institutions.
Hmm.
Those two I really recommend if you're interested in any of these topics. And then I think that I every time I listen to something, every time I interact with something,
Hmm.
research. So if a
Hmm.
topic is up that you don't know about, or you're in a meeting and you don't know something, I just write it down
Hmm.
and save it for later. I will like pick up my like trusty notebook here, has so much information.
Hmm.
And that is my advice to anyone is just
Hmm.
continue to be curious and continue to research. I guess for you, a question I have is what have you learned so far in this process through hosting this podcast?
I guess something very interesting I've been learning. Many of the people I've been talking to, they've all had the very like special ways to learn, and I think one of the coolest things I learned was from a guy from Google. He's called Brett Flagg. He's an awesome software engineer. He's got this blog. It's called Flegg's Follies, I believe, and there's this one article. It's called it's about Parkinson's law, and so it's about how you allocate your time and how you sort of separate it up and make sure that you get the maximum efficiency. And so that was sort of pretty new for me. And after doing that, I started to segment out my own time. I started using to use Google Calendar more and start to push myself, give myself more deadlines for everything, because it's the middle of a holiday and I've got basically quite a lot of time, but to segment it out, it's sort of made it a lot easier for me to sort of keep on track.
Yes, that makes sense. That's awesome. I'm so happy you're learning things through this process because there's so much information in the world. That is my number one, kind of thing. Gotta learn.
All right, sweet. Thank you. All right.
Awesome.